Imagine you worked hard all year. You saved $10,000. You did everything right. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Just by sitting in your bank account, that money is quietly shrinking. Not because someone stole it, not because the market crashed, but because of a silent, legal, system-wide mechanism that has been operating since before your grandparents were born. It's called inflation. And after watching this video, you'll never look at your money the same way again. Prices are going up everywhere. A cup of coffee that cost 25 cents in the 1960s now costs you $4 or $5. A house that your father bought for $30,000 is now $500,000. And the crazy part? Most people just accept this as normal. But is it actually normal? Or is it the result of a system that was deliberately designed this way? Today, we're going to break down exactly why inflation exists, who benefits from it, who gets hurt by it, and what you can do to protect yourself. Stick with me until the end, because the last part is the most important thing you'll hear today. At its core, inflation is simple. It means your money buys less than it used to. Think of it this way. In 1913, the year the United States Federal Reserve was created, $1 could buy you 30 Hershey's chocolate bars. Today, that same dollar barely covers the tax on one. The official definition says inflation is the rate at which prices for goods and services increase over time. But that's the polished textbook version. The street version. Your salary goes up 3%. Prices go up 5%. You just got poorer, and no one even told you. Now, economists will tell you there are two main types of inflation. Demand pull inflation, when too many people are chasing too few goods. Think of a concert where 10,000 people want 1,000 tickets. Prices shoot up, cost push inflation, when it becomes more expensive to make things. Like when oil prices spiked in the 1970s, everything that needed to be transported, manufactured, or packaged, all of it got more expensive overnight. Annual inflation exceeded 14% during that decade. But here's what they don't teach you in school. There's a third kind, the most powerful kind, and it comes straight from the top. Imagine a small town. There are 100 people, and together they have exactly $1,000 in cash. There are also 1,000 apples in the market, so each apple costs $1. Makes sense now. One day, the town mayor decides to print another $1,000 and give it out. Now there's $2,000 in the town. But wait, the number of apples hasn't changed. Still 1,000 apples. What happens? The price of each apple jumps to $2. Nobody created more value. Nobody worked harder. The mayor just printed paper. And instantly, everyone's savings were worth half of what they used to be. That's inflation from money printing. And that's not a fairy tale. That's exactly what has been happening on a massive scale for over a century. Here's a jaw-dropping number. According to Federal Reserve data, the US dollar has lost approximately 97% of its purchasing power since 1913. If you had hidden $100 under your mattress in 1913, that same $100 today would have the buying power of roughly $3.50, and then came 2020. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the U.S. government and Federal Reserve pumped trillions of dollars into the economy. In fact, around 20% of all U.S. dollars in existence were created in the single year of 2020 alone. And what followed? By June 2022, inflation hit 9.1%, a 40-year high. More money, same goods, higher prices. Every single time. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Inflation isn't just an accident. In many ways, it's designed into the system. And the reason comes down to one word: debt. Governments love to spend money. Roads, military, social programs. These cost trillions. And most governments spend more than they collect in taxes, so they borrow. The U.S. national debt today is over $35 trillion. Interest payments on that debt now exceed $1 trillion per year. So what's the elegant solution? Inflate your way out. Here's how it works. If a government borrows $1 trillion today, but then inflates the currency over the next 20 years, the real value of that debt shrinks. They're paying back old debts with cheaper dollars. Inflation is basically a secret tax on everyone who holds cash or earns a salary. Central banks like the U.S. Federal Reserve actually target inflation. Their official goal is 2% per year. That might sound small, but at 2% annual inflation, the purchasing power of your money is cut in half every 35 years. And that's the target, not the cap. Think about what that means if you're a working person saving for retirement. Every year you wait, your savings are quietly being eroded, not by a thief breaking into your house, by policy. There's a reason one financial writer called inflation the hidden tax. Through it, wealth is silently and legally transferred from everyday savers to governments and institutions that benefit from a growing money supply. Real people feel this every single day. Take housing. In the 1970s, the median home price in America was around $23,000. By 2024, that number was well over $400,000. Wages did not come close to keeping up the result. An entire generation of young people priced out of the housing market entirely, or take eggs. In 2024, egg prices in America spiked dramatically, partly because bird flu wiped out millions of egg-laying hens, and partly because of the broader inflationary environment that drove up every cost in the supply chain: fuel, feed, labor, packaging. And here's the cruel irony. Inflation hits the poor hardest. Rich people can protect themselves. They own real estate, stocks, businesses, assets that tend to rise with inflation. But if you're living paycheck to paycheck, keeping cash in a savings account, inflation is eating your lunch every single month. The wealthiest 10% of Americans own about 93% of the stock market. So when the Federal Reserve prints money and asset, prices rise, the rich get richer. And when inflation erodes cash savings, it's the working class that feels it most. For most of modern history, paper money was backed by gold. The government could only print as much money as it had gold reserves to support. This kept inflation in check. It was a natural brake on the system. Then, on August 15, 1971, President Richard Nixon made a decision that changed the global economy forever. He ended dollar convertibility to gold, meaning the US dollar was no longer tied to any physical commodity. It became what economists call a fiat currency, backed by nothing except government trust. From that point forward, money creation became essentially unlimited. Look at what happened after M2 money supply. A broad measure of all US dollars in circulation went from $4.6 trillion in the year 2000 to $19.5 trillion by 2021. The curve of the dollar's purchasing power, which had been a slow, steady decline for decades, went nearly vertical downward after 1971. And when you look at gold, which can't be printed into existence, it tells the whole story. In 1913, an ounce of gold cost about $20. Today, it trades above $3,000. Gold didn't become more valuable. The dollar became less valuable now. Here's the part where I give you the full picture, because it's not black and white. Some inflation is genuinely healthy. Economists generally agree that a moderate rate around 2% per year encourages spending and investment. If prices are stable or falling, people tend to delay purchases. I'll wait, it'll be cheaper next month. That psychology can spiral into deflation, and deflation is actually more dangerous. It leads to less spending, less production, layoffs, and economic collapse. Japan struggled with deflation for decades, and it stunted their economy badly. So, a little inflation greases the wheels of growth. The problem is runaway inflation. The problem is when governments and central banks abuse the system, printing money for political convenience. Financing wars, bailing out banks, and everyday people pay the price in the form of rising grocery bills and shrinking savings. Moderate inflation. Fine, a system where the money supply consistently grows faster than economic output, decade after decade, eroding the savings of working people while governments and debtors benefit. That's where the slow steal really happens. The answer is simple. Even if it's not easy, don't hold all your wealth in cash. Cash in a savings account, earning 1%, while inflation runs at 3%, means you're losing 2% of your purchasing power every single year, silently, automatically. Here's what people who understand this game actually do. Invest in real assets. Stocks, real estate, commodities, assets that tend to rise with inflation over time. The S&P 500, for example, has historically outpaced inflation over the long run. Consider inflation-protected securities. In the U.S., Treasury inflation-protected securities, or TIPS, are government bonds whose principal adjusts with the CPI. Your money grows with inflation. Invest in yourself. Skills that increase your earning power are the best long-term hedge against inflation. If you're earning more each year, you can stay ahead of rising prices. Stay educated. Most people are never taught how money actually works. That ignorance is expensive. The people who understand the game can navigate it. The people who don't slowly get left behind. You don't have to be rich to start. You just have to start. Here's the truth about inflation, laid out plainly. It's not a glitch. In the system, in many ways, it is the system. Governments borrow, central banks print, purchasing power erodes, and the people least equipped to protect themselves, the everyday savers, the wage earners, the retirees on fixed income, they pay the cost, quietly, slowly, year after year. Since the Federal Reserve was created in 1913,